Heading back into the well of both my childhood favorite games and the beat-em-up genre, today we'll be taking a look at Fighting Force. Fighting Force, also known as Metal Fist in Japan, a much sweeter name, is a 1997 3D beat-em-up game that released on PlayStation 1, Windows PC, and the Nintendo 64. Another project developed by Core Design of Ninja Shadow of Darkness fame on this here channel. Fighting Force actually does have a bit of an interesting backstory. Beginning life on the Sega Saturn, Fighting Force was actually meant to be Streets of Rage 4. Sega sought out Core Design to create the sequel to the titular franchise, this time bringing the 2D classic into the 3D realm. During its development, however, Core Design got into a dispute with Sega over the game's eventual distribution. Sega obviously wanted Streets of Rage to be a Saturn exclusive. Core, having had reasonable success with Tomb Raider as a multi-platform hit, wanted to bring their Streets of Rage 4 to the PlayStation as well. Sega refused, so the project fell through. We didn't get Streets of Rage 4 till 2020, and Core fucked off to create their own beat-em-up game, with blackjack and hookers. Streets of Rage 4 thusly evolved into Judgment Force. It was basically the same concept as Fighting Force, but the characters all had vastly different designs, and one of the playable characters ended up being cut and re-implemented as a boss in the actual game. So let's boot into the game and see what Fighting Force has to offer. Oh hey, this is neat. Fighting Force actually has demos available, one for Ninja Shadow of Darkness and one for Tomb Raider 3. For you millennials who don't remember, demos used to be put on discs alongside regular games, or on those special demo discs you could get with magazines or cereal boxes even, to try to get you hyped for products, as well as giving you a look at a new, potentially fun game, instead of nowadays where demos are barely a thing anymore. Back to the actual game though. The story of Fighting Force is actually kind of hilarious and a bit pants-on-head crazy, to be honest. The game centers around the nefarious Dr. Dex Zhang, a former high-powered government agent, on top of being a radical scientist and a professor of theology as well. The game's manual describes Zhang as a better-functioning idiot savant who will always accomplish his goals. This savant status is paired with a megalomaniacal complex that might have been caused by the synthetic drugs he's developed and tested himself for some reason. He also genuinely believes he's the chosen one, Father Nature, Keeper of Earth, and everyone and everything should bow to him. Seems like those drugs might have made him a bit crazy as well, but that's just an opinion from me. I'm not like a doctor or something. Zhang, much like a lot of people in the year 1999, believed the world was coming to an end when the clocks turned over to the year 2000, a reference to the Y2K bug, I imagine. If you're too young to know what that is, basically a bunch of people back in 1999 were terrified every computer in the world will simultaneously fail when the clocks turned over to the year 2000, and it would cause the apocalypse, basically. Zhang was so sure the world was going to end, he convinced a ton of soldiers, thugs, and militia members to help him prepare for the end of the world that was certainly coming. Unfortunately for him, the world just kept on spinning. This pissed Zhang off so much, though, he said, "We'll do it live! Fuck it!" and plans to force the end of the world himself. Zhang starts pulling all the strings to enable the end of the world. Thankfully, though, one of Zhang's lab assistants, Snapper, strange name, acknowledges that this is completely insane and contacts private investigator Mace Daniels, who, after hearing all this nonsense, decides to put together a force to take him down. A fighting force, if you will, and one described as one of the most volatile teams ever created. This force of 4 are your playable characters for this game. Heading this fearsome foursome is the aforementioned Mace Daniels, and I'd love to talk about her bio in the manual because it is unabashedly horny. Here's the highlights. Mace is one hot woman with a taste for blood as well as desire. She's the one who teases and taunts you just before she takes you out. Mace is beautiful, kinda like Lara Croft. She's not brash or annoying. She would purr to her assailant rather than say, "Hey punk." Mace is a woman aware of her sexual magnetism, yet she couldn't care less about men. She is always being pursued without giving anyone the time of day. This, coupled with her array of martial arts and weaponry skills, makes her a fighter who is the envy of men and women alike. God, I love how horny this description sounds. It's like I stumbled onto someone's forum role-playing character. It's so shameless, like Yoko Taro wrote it or something. Mace is the one character I would actually say I preferred the original design for, though. I prefer the purple pants and the black hair. It just kinda looks good. Not like the final design is bad or anything. You could write an equally horny description either way, to be totally honest with you. This horniness continues into the bio of our second protagonist, Hawk Manson. Hawk has seen Mace fight, and this is the one thing that stirs him inside like nothing else. When Mace approaches him for the job, by pinning him to the ground, smiling a sexy smile, and telling him that she needs his help, Hawk is definitely stirred. There's some sort of chemistry here, but both are too headstrong and stubborn to admit it. He takes on this job to get closer to the elusive Mace Daniels. So Hawk's a simp. Got it. Makes sense. Hawk definitely changed a lot from his initial design as well, going from a blonde to a brunette, and opting to lose the shirt as any good vigilante fist fighter would do. Should have kept the shades though, since sunglasses always make you look cooler. Then, Smasher Jackson is your third playable character. A dangerous, violent, loose cannon serving multiple life sentences in a maximum security prison. This prison also allows clients to rent Jackson out as a mercenary, with Hawk as his #1 client, obviously. Hawk even has a deal where they'll set Smasher free if Hawk contracts him 15 times, sort of like rent to own, as the manual says. Fighting Force, you can't own people. We fought a whole war about this, and I'm pretty sure the pro-ownership side lost. Smasher used to be called Hammer, and it looks like his old design was just reused for one of the bosses that shows up mid-game. Smasher is also my favorite character because he has a completely devastating array of grabs, on top of the fact that if you just start gorilla pressing someone, you could just do airplane spins all day.
Eagle! I told you not to call me Lawrence!
He also has the best running attack, period.
I believe I can fly. I believe I can touch the sky.
And lastly for this foursome is Alana McKendrick, a 17-year-old raver with a grudge against Zhang since he attempted to experiment on her with his weird drugs. She only likes the normal raver drugs, thank you. Also, she's Zhang's bastard child. Yeah, that's an interesting little overlooked detail, to be honest. So, she feels responsible for taking her old man down. Alana didn't even exist in the Judgment Force version of this game, her being replaced by a Dr. Vulcan, who I'm pretty sure was reused as a boss in the final product. This one here, to be precise. This motley crew is the one that'll take Zhang down and bring an end to the end of the world. These four characters are also balanced in a pretty obvious sliding scale. Smasher is the strongest and the slowest. Alana is the weakest and the fastest of the crew. Hawk and Mace fall in between the two. Pick your poison. If you know me, you know exactly who I'm playing. Each character has their own arsenal of punches, kicks, combos, back attacks, grabs, and running attacks, on top of a special clear-out attack that costs health to use but does knock everyone away if you're in a pinch. Everyone's moveset is pretty diverse as well, though some attacks are shared amongst characters, so there's definitely a good amount of moves to play around with at least. In addition to your fists and feet, you'll also have a wide variety of weapons at your disposal. Pistols, shotguns, rocket launchers, pipes, axes, bats, knives, and bottles too. I'm a big fan of the fact that the bottles have a breaking animation when you glass your foe over the head with them. Weapons are also constantly hidden on the various maps in the game too, which is fun since if you know the tricks, you can find and use them yourself. You can also just rip bars off of doors too. I just love the animation where your character just proper beasts it off the handle. It's the best. Be wary though, as your enemies can use all the weapons you can too. As for your enemies, they come in 3 basic varieties, with a bit of a wider selection when it comes to the skins that surround the skeleton. They also each share the same attacks amongst these basic types. These varieties are man, woman, and big boy! As for the skins, well, you have your suit-clad personal security types, some very dedicated janitors, I might add, more traditional rent-a-cop looking security members that show up in an out-of-control van. That definitely isn't safe. Run-of-the-mill street thugs that occupy every nook and cranny of the streets, alongside some piss-soaked hobos who I'm not entirely sure why they're fucking with me. Maybe it's because I keep eating all the ground food and I leave none for them. Women only have 3 types: the sexy ninja women, the street punks like Trash from Return of the Living Dead, and the dive suit commandos that show up in the aircraft carrier level. As for the big boys, well, they're typically reserved for boss types outside these men in black that show up in the first level. These are all kind of typical enemy types for your run-of-the-mill evil genius, but things do open up a bit later in the game with militia members doing their best Rambo cosplays, these hammer-headed dudes who hop off these sweet jet bikes, radiation suit wearing martial artists, I'm gonna assume, since scientists aren't typically this badass. Then you have Zed's personal security men who have bionic arms that jolt you with an electrical shock, sending you to the ground immediately. Then at the apex of this are literal purple mutants who sport rapid regenerating capabilities, meaning you just have to beat them down as fast as possible so they can't heal. You'll do battle with these miscreants through a variety of locations, ranging from a high-rise building, the streets of the city, malls, subways, and even a transport boat too. Then you have Zhang's Island Fortress, which has a high-rise elevator level up to Zhang's penthouse. Before you ask though, you can't throw people off of anything, which is an absolute heartbreaker because I so wanted to gorilla press slam people off this damn elevator. Branching paths are also available to you as you journey through the game, so it ups the replay value of the game a little bit outside of playing each character individually, obviously. My favorite part of playing this game, though, is the fact that so much random stuff just fucking explodes when you hit it. It's like a Simpsons bit or something. Look at all this. You might question though why I'm savaging every bit of the landscape I can find. Well, it's very simple, for points. Duh! Points are critical in this game since, unlike your more traditional beat 'em up, Fighting Force starts you with 0 continues and you have to acquire them by racking up 50,000 points. A fairly easy task if you're a maniac like me with a license to smash whatever the hell he wants. You'll need these continues as well since this game's combat isn't exactly great, to be honest. Well, the basic fighting works fine, but there's a lot more frustrating things that happen as you play. Obviously, I've been pussyfooting around the topic a bit, but Fighting Force's core gameplay loop is incredibly frustrating at times. Never should I get this mad at something that should just be so simple. So like I said, the general combat is okay, though strikes do feel kind of stiff, and the combinations also feel just as stiff as well. Biggest problem is running attacks can be interrupted mid-leap, which is pretty frustrating.
All around me are familiar faces.
Same goes for rolling attacks, unfortunately. The biggest curiosity, though, is that enemies have the ability to block, but you're totally lacking the ability to do so. They also seem to be able to just guard point your strikes mid-combo and immediately punish you. Worse still, enemies have super nasty habits of just sliding out of your grabs. Not escaping or breaking your grab, just sliding out of it. These problems are greatly exasperated by the game's few bosses. All of the bosses are big chunky dudes who super armor any normal attack you do, and absolutely savage you in response for even thinking you could throw a punch in their direction. Jesus Christ. Oh, and don't even think about grabbing the bosses either.
They ask you how you are, you just have to say that you're fine.
The only boss that really breaks the mold of your normal violent pummeling is this guy here. He has a power suit that generates an electric field around him, meaning you can't hit him normally. Instead, you just have to pick up random junk off the battlefield and beat him with it until he dies. This is an incredibly effective strategy against all enemies and bosses, though. Every enemy in the game is completely unable to guard weapon strikes at all, so if you got a weapon, use it immediately. This goes doubly for the game's final boss in Zhang. You meet him at the top of his island fortress where he's ready to rock. Zhang, like every boss in this game, absorbs your basic attacks and beats the crap out of you. You actually can grab Zhang though, but the game's camera definitely didn't like me doing that at all. Look at this. Unfortunately for him, these pillars are just stuffed with various guns and weapons you can use against him, so smash, grab, and pump his ugly guts full of lead. You bring Zhang down and in true action movie fashion, escape the island just as it violently explodes. Par for the course for this game's universe, I guess. Zhang gets thrown in the slammer, and you're rewarded with the credits and a high score screen if you amassed enough points. You're dumped to the main menu, and that's a playthrough of Fighting Force in the books. So, what are my thoughts? It's an okay game. Fighting Force can be fun, but it's a game that's unfortunately held back by the combat, you know, the biggest part of it. It works, but with enemies constantly guarding attacks mid-combo, it gets far too frustrating at times. If basic enemies didn't guard point constantly and the bosses had vulnerability in their attack patterns, it'd be a pretty damn near perfect brawler, to be honest. Adding a block button wouldn't hurt the game either. I think the character designs are fine, and I admire the pants-on head crazy of the story, on top of the sheer horniness in some of the characters' biographies. If there was anything standout about this game, it'd probably be the soundtrack. It rocks pretty hard and it fits the game's various levels perfectly. You know I think a game's OST is good when I actually use it as the background music for a video. Late game enemy designs are fun too, and there's a good amount of fun set pieces the game uses to make things exciting as well. Core didn't slack with the window dressing at least. Fighting Force isn't a bad game by any stretch, and you could enjoy it if you decided to pick up a copy for yourself, but it could have been so much better. Fighting Force did receive a sequel though in Fighting Force 2, so hopefully when I check that game out, it'll be much improved. Till that time though, I'll end this video. My name, as always, it's Hades Manticore. This channel is City State Manticore. Leave a like and a comment if you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.